Hello, hello. Give us a few minutes while we get set up and we will be right underway.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really, really fine. How is the weather at your place?
The weather is pretty typical of the UK. It's very cold, raining, and grey skies.
I see. I see. Uh,
So pretty standard. How's it over there?
it's a bit relatively cold here as well to this, neck of the woods. But overall, it's fine. Every once in a while, we have these like tiny, like not tiny, but like small sandstorms, which is like basically make the weather and the air very hot, and everything gets covered in sand and dust, and your car loses its original color, whatever it was, and becomes shades of gray.
The sandstorms are crazy things. Like
No, but it's not the sandstorms like you see in the Mission Impossible movie. It's like just basically sand in the air. Like it's not a storm. It's just basically a lot of sand, and it gets hot. It gets hot in the sun, so it's like very, like basically you walk into this like a dry sauna every time you go out. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So. Another week. We have a lot of things to cover today. Really, really many great questions and a few important topics that we need to discuss related to the upcoming votes in the EPOCH 18. So we will talk about that. There were a lot of good ideas discussed in the forum regarding all kinds of integrations and suggestions. So we will also address that. I would like to also talk about the relatively new account abstraction thingy that was done on Ethereum, and what we can do with that as well. Yeah, so let's get started, I think.
Absolutely. A lot to cover and some pretty exciting stuff right around the corner.
Yeah, definitely things are moving forward, which is very nice. Everything but the price, actually, which is kind of moving nowhere. But yeah. Anyway, let's start with the with the important stuff. And as you know, in the next epoch, we're going to vote on two allocations of BMX from the liquidity mining part of the BMX DAO pie. And one of these parts is going to a Nephrite liquidity mining, and the other one to the DEX. And there were a lot of questions about it. And also there was a question about incentivizing the votes themselves. And I would like to address first and foremost these kind of questions and concerns and explain how I think like we can move forward with that. So first of all, when we're talking about a specific allocation, let's say 6% for the Nephrite and 6% for the DEX for 2 years, it doesn't mean that it's like 2 years and that's it, because there were ideas of spreading this amount into 5 years or like reducing this allocation, making it bigger. So we can always, first of all, we can always make it larger at any point. We can allocate more funds. We can also allocate more funds for more years later. So it's not limiting us. The way that we now decide to allocate this amount does not limit us from making additional allocations in the future, right? So it's
so it will all be very like malleable in what can be changed and this kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
so I would like to have a clear contract with anyone who is staking to never change the conditions, or like never reduce or like change in a negative way the contract that was established when the persons take their funds, right? That's I think is pretty kind of clear that whenever you are signing into some specific program, it should remain at least as good as it was when you joined it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that this program cannot be enlarged or extended, and these decisions can be made at any point in the future. So right now, what we're doing and the purpose of this vote is to clear the ground, to clear the way for this initial allocation to get things started, so we can deploy these contracts, and Nephrite can deploy their contracts and get rolling. And we can always adjust things, like, once again, without affecting the existing contracts with people who have already staked. Another good question that was raised there is like whether there will be a situation that, like it was in the initial staking, that it was more profitable to stake from a lot of small wallets instead of like one big one. And yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to avoid that, right? So it's just the amount of BMax is going to determine your rewards, and not the amount of wallets that you operate.
Cool.
Yeah. So somebody asked, like, how did the previous staking program go, and how many BMax was distributed over which period of time? So just to remind people who are new here, or like don't remember the details, it was 1 million BMax over 3 months. And now we're talking about 6 million for DEX and the 6 million for Nephrite over 2 years, which is translated into about 250,000 per month for each. And obviously, within this amount, there are bonuses for early adopters and people who are participating on early stages. At least in the DEX case, it's going to be during the liquidity accumulation phase. So whoever joins at that early period will get a bonus, like more BMax during the farming. And we will publish all the details, obviously, before it will start. So the vote will start in Epoch 18, which is in a few days, I think it starts. And the vote, yeah.
It kicks off on the 14th, I believe.
Yeah, that should be the case. And the votes themselves will be uploaded in the coming few days. By the way, during the kind of previous or current epoch, we have found a little issue in the UI of the voting contract. It's not in the contract itself, it's just in the UI. And the issue was that the quorum that was required for a vote was not represented correctly. So we're going to fix that. Once again, it does not affect anything about the vote itself. It's just the way it is seen in the UI. So it's a relatively minor fix. But it's a good thing we did this first kind of vote to iron out these issues. So that's the upcoming Epoch 18, and obviously you need to stake your BMax in the next 5 days to participate in that vote. Now, regarding the incentivization of the votes themselves, so it's something that we have discussed way back when we have been just starting talking and like publishing the documents about how the voting process is going to be performed in the BMax DAO. And I will kind of summarize the key important takes from that. So what we have right now is something that is called a special vote, which is basically a vote that is only created when there is a specific topic to discuss. In addition to special votes, we also have periodic voting. And it's described in the document. We didn't implement it yet, but the idea of a periodic vote is that there is every epoch, there is a decision that can be made on how to distribute or how to, like what to do with the liquidity that's accumulated in the DAO. Because as you know, all of the applications that are connected to the BMX DAO, whether they are developed by Beam or developed by other organizations, but are actually integrated with the DAO, they all contribute to the DAO vault. And the funds in that vault, all the different token types, they can be either distributed between the voters in that specific epoch, or they can be preserved or allocated for like specific purposes. So this is the kind of mechanism that is actually implemented in a few DAOs, but whoever is actively participating in that epoch deserves part of the this allocation in that specific period, right? So when you are making a decision of what to do with your BMX, you can actually have several options. You can become a liquidity provider, for example, in the DEX for the Beam BMX pool, and then you can get your LP tokens and lock them and get more BMX as a result of liquidity farming, liquidity mining. Or you can take this BMX and you can put into the voting contract, both to vote and to be kind of participate in the distribution of the DAO Vault like pool when we implement that. So there are always like some decisions that you can make to hedge, all kinds of situations. So you can decide to allocate your BMX, like put some of them in the voting contract, put some of them in the DEX, like do all kinds of interesting financial decisions on that. I think it's a good idea and will create kind of this interesting decision-making process for BMX holders. Any questions about that?
Definitely adds an interesting element for how BMS will go about like staking for voting and the rewards that came up a few times in the DEX discussion and this kind of thing.
I agree. Now, in terms of like there were a few questions about the allocation of BMX like between different pools in the DEX, right? So we have Beam BMX pool. We probably like are going to incentivize the Beam Nephrite and BMX Nephrite pools. Actually, additional incentivization of more pools, both from this specific allocation, like on the launch stages or later, if additional pools are added and the community thinks that they should be incentivized with additional staking programs, it always can be voted upon, and additional funds can be allocated to additional pools. So that's not a problem. Yeah, so kind of, I think that the specifics of the initial of how the initial allocation will be used and distributed between different pools will be provided. The suggestion of how to do it will be provided in the coming week. Definitely before before the vote is over and before the launch, and also like it doesn't mean that it doesn't stop us from voting on the initial amount, because without that we cannot even allocate the funds. What else I wanted to say about it? Yeah, so okay, so that's basically about the yeah, I remember. So what we want to probably also start doing fairly quickly is start the liquidity accumulation program. Once again, the exact details, we'll publish them soon, but we discussed it last week and the week before that, as in kind of, we had two options of either doing a price discovery or setting the price. So there were no major objections to kind of setting a specific price. And once we do that, it means that we can start the liquidity accumulation using that price. And whoever participates in this stage will get this additional early bird bonus that I mentioned. And once the accumulation period will be over, then all of this liquidity will be moved into the DEX, right? And you basically will continue trading and providing liquidity using the same kind of conditions that were used in the early stage. And whoever joins after the launch of the DEX will get also like LP allocation, but without the bonus for the early bird participation. I hope that was clear enough. Okay.
So just to be clear, the like users that go into the initial pools will receive like a bonus of BMX for doing so, and this will be prior to launching on the the market launching on the DEX. Is that
Yes,
right?
absolutely. There will be a bonus for being participating in the liquidity accumulation part, and this liquidity will be used as the starting liquidity when the BMX pool launches on the DEX. Okay, so what we have discussed is basically the upcoming votes, the procedure of liquidity accumulation before the DEX launch that we want to start fairly soon. And we also discussed the incentivization for the voting using this periodic vote mechanism that we will add at some point. Now, there were some questions about the bridges, and I think there was some kind of something was not clear, or there was some misunderstanding about the operation of the bridges. So the amount of wrapped coins that is present at any given time on the Beam chain is exactly equal to the amount of coins that are locked on the Ethereum side. What that means is that if you make profit in, let's say, wrapped Ethereum on Beam, this profit can never exceed the total amount of actual ETH locked in the contract, right? So it just will not be possible to receive, more wrapped tokens on Beam side than there are actually locked in the contract in no situation or operation or DeFi activity that you might undertake. There was some kind of misconception about the idea of liquidity providers for the bridges, right? So at this point in time, there is no such thing, right? So basically, providing liquidity just means that you lock your coins on Ethereum and you get wrapped tokens, and then you, let's say, stake them in the pool. So then you become liquidity provider of bridged tokens, and you get your profit as a liquidity provider from the pool, but you do not get necessarily the profit by just bringing this liquidity over, unless obviously you're a bridge operator. And the bridge operator, if you create a completely new bridge for a new asset and you operate it, you do have expenses because you need to send transactions on Ethereum and on Beam to synchronize both sides of the bridge. And then you do get additional kind of fees that you collect because you need to cover those costs. But just moving funds through the bridge does not make you a liquidity provider of the bridge as of today. I think it was important to clarify. Okay.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. I have a question, Alex. Sorry. For example, if I put one Ethereum on the Ethereum side and bridge it over to Beam, now I have one wrapped Beam on the, one wrapped Ethereum on the Beam side, and then I send it to you, and you have not bridged over any Ethereum. can you then unwrap that Ethereum that I sent you and get it on the Ethereum side?
Yes, yes, you can do that. Absolutely. That's absolutely possible. I believe we have a question from Master.
Yes, it's me. Um, about the bridges.
Yes.
Um, I remember that the bridges are still centralized. Can
Yeah.
those be made decentralized by the use of smart contracts in the future?
Yes. Yeah. So there are several ways how this can be done. Like what we have been doing up until now, we have developed this mechanism that allows you to create a completely decentralized bridge, which validates proofs from both sides of both chains in the smart contract on the opposite chain. Let's say if you want to move funds from Beam to Ethereum, then you can create a proof on Beam side and then validate it using Ethereum contract and vice versa. So the problem with that approach was that it would be very inefficient and costly to validate each transaction or each kind of transition over the bridge. And hence, it requires using some mechanism such as, for example, optimistic rollup. So you basically say, we are doing the transition over the bridge. And like if somebody thinks that there was a problem with that, like you can provide a dispute, and dispute requires providing a full, like complete proof of like both sides. And then what happens is that there are two kind of elements to a dispute. First of all, it takes time because like you need to wait for people to potentially dispute it. Like you cannot start spending those funds immediately. And the second is that both sides of the dispute need to stake some amount of assets, because like if somebody just provides a fake or false proof, it should be like it should be costly. They should be punished for that using these funds that they provide the state. Now, there are several problems with this approach. First of all, you need to have enough funds to kind of fight any disputes. Let's say you are an honest bridge, everything you're doing is completely right at all times, but there are people who want to attack this bridge, so they just provide a lot of fake proofs and you fight them. Yes, eventually they will lose in terms of the amount of funds that they lock. But while this process continues, the bridge might be kind of slowed down or kind of completely DDoS or DOS in some way. So you need to be able to cover that. And this is where we kind of got not stuck, but we didn't complete this process of handling all of these situations and cases. And we said, you know what, let's start with a centralized bridge. So yes, it's definitely possible to continue via this road and to create a kind of more robust solution that will work in a completely decentralized way. So this is one possible way. Another possible way is to go towards more kind of like a RAN bridge solution, right? When you have some kind of additional network of participants governing the bridge in a more decentralized way than it is right now. So that both approaches are valid. And one of the problems, by the way, with the optimistic rollup is like when we're talking about funds that need to be locked for the dispute, it's also important to understand like how much what you're moving is actually worth, right? So, for example, I'm just as an example, if you're moving an NFT, one NFT can be worth a lot of ETH, right? Or if you're moving some asset which is very costly in terms of ETH to Beam, then you are moving from a very strong chain, which is Ethereum, to a weaker chain, which is Beam, and then you are basically making the attacks more profitable, right? Because today there is this balance between Beam on the chain and the miners that protect the network from rollbacks. When you are increasing the worth of the assets that are on chain without at the same time increasing the worth for the miners, the chain becomes weaker. Like the attack becomes more profitable. So all of these considerations made us kind of, I wouldn't say abandon, but at least kind of postpone this decentralized solution in order to advance with other decentralized applications for now. But yeah, both approaches are possible. The original one and the kind of REN-like one. I hope that answers the question.
That was because in that paper, not I don't remember what it's called, uh, that described the the dangers of a centralized bridge, and those sounded pretty bad. I don't remember what they were, but
The dangers of a centralized?
yeah,
Yeah, obviously. No, centralized bridges are the worst. Like, I mean, it's not, it's not like we say, oh, we have an idea, let's make a great bridge and let's make it centralized. It's definitely, it's not like in the long term, that's not the approach we would like to take optimally. But at this point, it was something that was kind of lower, a little bit lower hanging fruit for us. So, yeah, we definitely want to improve that. It's just a question of time and priorities. But yeah, I totally agree. Bridges are one of the most vulnerable parts of any ecosystem, and we see that often, way too often. Okay, so we have some additional questions that I would like to answer. Some of them were asked during the previous space, and I didn't get to them, so I would like to start with those because I think they're fairly important. So, as you could have probably noticed, there are a lot of kind of things that are missing in the mobile development area, right? So the mobile wallets are lagging behind all the rest of our kind of developments recently. And the reason for that is, yeah, like this area was defocused and defunded in some way recently, and it's once again a question of allocating resources and priorities. So definitely some critical bugs that were reported in the mobile wallets like were not addressed. We will see what we can do about that, like in terms of allocating resources to solve these issues. I don't expect like something major in the short term, but in terms of improving the mobile wallets for now. But yeah, it's definitely something that we can take a look at. So great question. Which brings me to a topic that a lot of people from the community also suggested of making this kind of a bounty platform, or like, um, allowing people to contribute funds to specific causes and topics that they feel they are interested in supporting. And I think it's a great idea. We used to have very long time ago a kind of similar platform. It was before the smart contract era and Beam. So it was a centralized platform using GitHub as its backend, actually, with like nice UI. But now that we do have smart contracts, I think we can make it much better by just integrating this option into the either the DAO or the voting contracts, and basically saying, okay, like we have a feature request, or we have a suggestion or improvement, so we can create this kind of metadata, very similar to a vote, where we describe what is the feature, provide the link to GitHub or a forum where this feature is discussed, and then allow people to contribute funds towards the bounty. Anyone can create an issue, anyone can then donate to this issue. And obviously, we will probably need some kind of community moderation so that the requests will be not too literal. But other than that, I think it's relatively simple to create something like that, and we will definitely do that. It's a great idea. And then, it will be much easier to, put your beam where your mouth is and support support feature requests and like things that you really want developed. It will make it easier. Once again, like it requires some decision making. What happens if it's not done? Like where this money goes to? Can you withdraw? When you can withdraw, etc. But yeah, like it's possible to do that, and we will try to implement something like this. I believe it can solve many issues going forward. So there were a couple of questions in the previous space about a centralized location of the Beam, like the Beam dApp store. So yeah, when you open the wallet and you go into the dApp store, currently the page that is hosting the list of applications is centralized. You get it from a centralized server. Is it possible to move it to IPFS? Yes. Are there other ways to host applications? Definitely, even today. Once again, it's a question of priority. Can be done, need to be prioritized, and then can be implemented. We believe that for now it's kind of okay. Once again, always prefer decentralized where it's possible. But other than that, technically it's not a problem to move everything to IPFS and make it all decentralized. Once again, IPFS sometimes requires caching servers and all kinds of like centralized components, but the source of truth at least resides on a decentralized file system, which is better. Okay. There were some questions about bridges with additional platforms other than ETH, like BSC or whatever. So once again, let's clear like what we want to do in the kind of coming months is clear the roadmap in terms of the DeFi applications that we want to roll out and make them operational and usable, and then we can discuss what to do next. But all of these ideas are actually great. I know that Amir has started working on the ETC grants that Dirty Rusky suggested a couple of spaces ago to try to get. Which brings me out, by the way, before that, there was a lot of discussions, like good ones, about the interaction with Monero communities. And yeah, so we do have some contacts in the Monero communities. It is theoretically possible, I believe, to create atomic swap, definitely a bridge with Monero. And like I do think it's a good idea because one of the arguments that was made is that I believe it was by DB is that Monero people are already privacy aware and they do not have native DeFi capabilities and smart contracts, so they might be more willing to try, what they can get on Beam, even though once again, most of their holdings are and will be in Monero. So it is a good idea. I think we can create a kind of forum discussion and eventually maybe vote either formally or informally on whether we should pursue this direction. But it's work once again. Not a big deal. Like it's not like some major development. It's possible to do to create wrapped Monero on Beam or integrate with some like kind of additional services that also use Monero. Yeah, so I believe it's a good direction, and we should definitely discuss it on the forum and maybe vote on whether we want to pursue it now. Okay. Any more questions that I missed? Okay, so once, while people remind me or send me more questions that were asked, did you hear about this recent Ethereum upgrade, the ERC 4337, Gus? Or not Gus, or anyone?
I did, only briefly, or at least I think I did. Is this the EIP that is talking about account abstraction, which, if I understand it right, this is kind of going a little bit away from how the standard wallets are operating, and kind of making, at least to my understanding, making them more like making it easier to have like smart contract wallets kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, it's right. And basically, what it's about is this kind of understanding by the crypto community at large and Ethereum, specifically, that it would be very difficult to move all the people in the world directly to holding your keys, in a secure location, and getting this, understanding the fact that if you lose them, you lose everything. And it's a step towards, adoption in a way which is also a little bit a concession of, basic crypto principles. So it's kind of the trying to find the middle ground and allow people to use crypto in an easier way, during this transition period. So basically, what this proposal describes is the standard, right? The API for a smart contract wallet, indeed, which can allow to implement a wide variety of functionalities that people come to expect today from a more centralized application. For example, whether it's I don't know, two-factor authentication, right? Or whether it's an ability to restore your key using several other keys that are distributed between different people or services that you're using. And, not be afraid that if you lose your key, you lose everything. So all of these kinds of features that are present today in most centralized applications are emulated in a smart contract, which has a very clear specification in order to allow other wallets and other smart contracts to integrate with it, right? Just like ERC20 is a standard for any token, and whoever wants to work with any token in Ethereum ecosystem can just implement this API for ERC20, and any token that is ERC20 compatible can be used, like in a DEX or any other application. In the same fashion, this proposal describes this account abstraction idea that allows you to create a wallet that will be compatible with any tool or any external kind of entity that is using it. So it's something that, in my opinion, is also worth considering to build on Beam. First of all, obviously, because it's on Ethereum, it will be adopted by all of the Ethereum compatible ecosystems. And theoretically, once we have the EVM, we can also implement it as is. But I think even before EVM, we might think about implementing at least parts of this EIP, because it might simplify greatly the integration with wallets that are going to support this standard. And I have here, let me see, for example, the Empire wallet, right, which is already supporting account abstraction, right? So it's like, just as one example that I was sent, probably most of the wallets will support it in some way. Once again, it's an idea that is powered or like coming from Ethereum, and Ethereum, they have this influence and they have the power of making things look standard, right? Or creating those standards and making many players in the ecosystem follow them, which is a great power to have. And I think we can also try to emulate or implement this API, and that might allow us much easier integrations with all kinds of external services that will be compatible with account abstraction. So also something worth discussing. Okay. Do we have any additional questions to discuss?
A question on like the account abstraction stuff. Do you think that, like, I can see where it comes from for sure. Like, I mean, holding your own keys, whether it's on a hardware wallet or in a hot wallet or whatever, it's very like daunting for new users entering the entering the like crypto ecosystem and this kind of thing. So from that regard, it makes sense to have a more user-friendly option at least. But I guess the question I have is, do you like, just in general, do you think that this account abstraction and these kind of more smart contract style wallets will have more specific applications within crypto? And by that, I kind of mean, like, will it be more suited to something like DeFi, or would it be more suited to something like Web3 social media platforms or gaming and this kind of thing?
Yeah, so when you are, let's say, if we divide the potential like activities that you're doing on chain, right, into several categories. So there are tokens that you're just, holding long term, and obviously these should be stored in a hardware wallet or the safe location. You don't really need, or in my opinion, it would be safer to use a hardware wallet than an on-chain kind of contract in any case. But if you are actively using funds for DeFi or Web3 applications, and or if you are an organization that requires that several people can access those funds and not necessarily like using the same key. So I think the smart contract wallets can give you more flexibility. The question is, like, what's the cost in terms of privacy, obviously, and also in terms of like security. Uh, yeah, it's going to be more convenient in a way, and it's better than centralized solution still, right? It's better than just holding all your funds on an exchange and just using it from there. By the way, when I started in crypto, it's funny, which was just 5 years ago, right? I'm not some kind of old, crypto guy. And by the way, Beam has started, I think, almost exactly 5 years ago. The development itself started on March 1st. And I was told to never send funds directly from one exchange to another, right? Always pass through a wallet, preferably a hardware wallet, which is what I did. I knew nothing, so that's what they told me, and that's what I did. But a lot of people are using, sending funds directly from one exchange to another, and then like they do not control completely this process. Did it arrive? Did it not arrive? What happened? So this is kind of the situations where you would like to have like more protection in terms of, yeah, it's not in centralized location. It's a smart contract, but the smart contract gives you more control, additional guarantees that even if you lose your keys, don't lose your funds, things like that. So yeah, it will be more convenient than just holding your keys on a hardware wallet, and better than just having it on a centralized exchange. So I think it's not a bad direction to go in order to increase adoption. And the fact that Ethereum is doing it also guarantees that it will be standardized, and at least this API will be implemented by everyone, and it means compatibility of different services, which, as we know, is a big problem in blockchain ecosystem in general. A lot of non-compatible technologies exist. So yeah, I think it's a good thing in this specific case. Okay, so let's see what else we have. We discussed this and that and everything. Yeah, so there were a lot of questions about, as usual, two important things. First of all, marketing, and the second one, the strategy, like what's next. Because as somebody said, yeah, like we already have all of the ecosystem basically built. Some applications are still need to be rolled out. Like once we do that, we have this very feature-rich platform. Where are we going? Like, what are the strategy of the of the BMX DAO in general? Like, what will be what happening next, and obviously how we're going to address the marketing issues. So we have several things that we have announced already that we talked about. One of them, like the major ones, are the EVM integration, which is in progress. And other than that, once we complete the rollout of the DeFi ecosystem and it's all working, it's definitely about bringing users, bringing liquidity, bringing activity in every way possible. We are going to spend like at least some of the funds that are still under Beam Foundation control on marketing activities. It's not too much money, so it's relatively limited. Market making is probably also important for the exchanges that we are still listed on, in order to support the price, allow the smoother like price transition, because right now the activity levels, as you know, are pretty low. So yeah, all of these things are definitely on on the roadmap and are going to happen. I think the most important thing that we need to really invest in finding is more projects to bring onto Beam. And I do get some requests here and there of projects that are either moving from other blockchains, which either are not functioning properly, or having outages, or just cease to exist. So we need to look for these projects and move them to Beam, because Beam does have all of the facilities necessary to run almost any kind of decentralized application, whether privacy focused or not, right? So it's like it doesn't matter. Like even if you're not a privacy oriented project, you can still do things on Beam much better than in most other blockchains. So in addition to that, we need to look for kind of additional possible integrations, which are not just on chain, right? Whether it's all kinds of trading platforms, I don't know, hedge funds that want to trade confidentially with each other. So we can create solutions that are either directly implemented on Beam if the speed is not an issue, like 1 block per minute is enough, or if higher speeds of transactions are required, then we need to think about layer 2 solutions, which are also possible on Beam. So that's going to be our focus, right? So right now everybody is busy with the rollout of these applications. We want to finalize that. There is a lot of work to be done. We need to make some additions and changes, at the Bounty platform, and fix the Explorer finally, and do all kinds of additional fixes. But once we launch, the main focus is going to be, bringing users and bringing liquidity and creating the activity on chain that will be beneficial to the ecosystem. Yeah. Speaking of outages, by the way, I just heard that there is some problem in
absolutely,
Ethereum.
and like exciting times with the DEX coming up, the Nephrite stablecoin. One question is the voting for EPOCH 18. Like for those that aren't aware, everyone should be, but for those that aren't aware, you will need to stake your BMX before the beginning of EPOCH 18 in order to vote. And I guess I have a follow-up question to this. After the vote for both the Beam DEX and Nephrite stablecoin farming allocations kind of thing is complete, what kind of time frame should we expect them to be launched on mainnet? Obviously, like with the DEX, there's the added liquidity kind of accumulation period and this kind of thing. So I guess maybe they're different for the two of them. Just wanted to ask for like a rough time frame on them.
Okay, so in terms of the free launch in general, once these funds are allocated, it's up to them, but I do not see any additional steps that need to be taken. So, in my opinion, everybody is interested in launching it as quickly as possible. In terms of the DEX, um, as you said, there's going to be a liquidity accumulation program, which will probably take about 2 weeks. So all in all, I expect everything to be rolled out within, 1 month tops, including, all of the overlays, like for all intents and purposes. Like, for example, in order to start the liquidity allocation, we don't need for the vote to complete because during the liquidity accumulation liquidity accumulation period, the reward is not distributed yet. So if we feel that like the vote is going to pass, we can launch it and then allocate the rewards after the vote is finalized. So it's all kind of it all can happen almost like in the same 2 or 3 weeks period. Take one more week for like additional unforeseen circumstances, and I believe everything should be operational within a month's time. That at least would be my hope. Okay. Any additional questions, anyone?
Sorry if I missed this, but about the
Yeah.
DEX, the will it have an APR like on Sushi Swap?
Uh, can you
Like
specify
it's,
what exactly is going on SushiSwap? So we're talking about the same thing.
that liquidity holders will get a part of the fees, like similar to the farm, but then just only from transactions.
Yeah, yeah. So the fees
Oh,
the fees in the DEX are divided into two parts. Like one part goes to the DAO vault, and the other part is obviously divided. Between liquidity providers who hold the LP tokens. The LP tokens can be separately locked into a liquidity mining program that gives you more BMax. So yeah, you basically uh, you have both of these rewards possible. Like your position is constantly increased with the fees that are accumulated. That's how it works.
thanks.
Yeah. Um, okay, so just to summarize, the upcoming vote in the EPOCH 18, as I said, is going to cover two major allocations, one for Nephrite and one for the DEX. Those allocations can be later both extended, improved, or changed in any way that does not break the already existing contracts. Once the allocations are voted for, then these funds will be transferred for liquidity mining for both Nephrite and DEX applications. In addition to that, we're going to launch as quickly as possible. Like once we feel that the vote is going, in a good way, we don't need to wait for it to be finalized to launch the liquidity accumulation program, which will probably run for about 2 weeks. At the end of it, this liquidity will be transferred to the pool in the DEX once DEX launches, and it will be used as initial liquidity. Those who participate in the liquidity accumulation program will receive a bonus on top of the regular BMax mining, BMax liquidity mining, and this is kind of the regarding the two upcoming launches. Yeah, that's, I think, the most important part. And other than that, we are moving forward in all the rest of the activities. The web wallet is being finalized and will be tested soon and rolled out. The same goes for the additional applications, such as the asset minter, the desktop wallet is all in the works, and it's all being kind of updated and tested as we speak. So all of these releases will happen in the short term. And also we need to discuss the creation of a bounty program on chain so that people can contribute and donate to the issues and causes that they feel can be implemented. And also we can talk about the account abstraction, which in my opinion is a very interesting concept that might make Beam integration easier, in the long term. That's kind of the summary. Hardware wallet and messenger. Yeah, should be on DAppNet fairly soon. Like I believe next week it will be on DAppNet, and then we will test it. And the both of these features are complete. The messenger needed some UI fixes, so I will update what's up with that in the coming days. But the development was completed. Right now it's just testing and fixing UI issues. Okay, so in this case, thank you very much for being here with us. Next week is going to be, I believe, a sort of anniversary of the first commit in Beam. So we will talk about the history a little bit and, reminisce about the good old days for a short time. And then we're going to, bring more updates. But yeah, great being here and with you, and thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to vote. Okay. Have a great day, everyone.
Alex, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, and thank everyone for all of the questions, and looking forward to next week's.
Sure. Take care. Bye bye.